Just really quick before we get started, I want to let you guys know that I already did view this video, which is about 4,000 people, that this is a re-upload, because after I finished the video, I started watching it back and really thinking about what I said, and I came to an insane realization. So stick around to the end, it's going to be crazy. Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. It's been a little bit since I did a raw speculation video, so we're going in. Today we're going to be talking about the Naaru, because it's one of the most heavily debated things, honestly, out there right now from what I've seen. It's talking about where the Naaru come from, how exactly Naaru work, and today we're going to be kind of delving a lot more into that. So if you're not familiar with the Naaru already, the Naaru are these prismatic, crystalline beings of pure holy energy. They're even defined by the Chronicle books as being pure holy energy as well. And I want to make sure that I do Chronicle Volume 1 justice in its description. It says, occasionally clouds of fractured light gathered and gave shape to beings of far greater power, of far greater potential. Among these were the Naaru, benevolent creatures composed of scintillating holy energies. When they gazed out across the immeasurable universe, they saw a realm of limitless possibilities. The Naaru vowed to use their mastery over holy magic to spread hope and nurture life wherever they could find it. Now, these creatures were initially introduced to us back in the Burning Crusade when they accompanied the Draenei to Draenor. These include Naaru, like Adal. Man, they had a lot of different Naaru. Actually, I can't actually name them all. There's a lot of different Naaru, but Lura, Adal, xe'ra, you get the picture. We've seen actually Prime Naaru as well in xe'ra on Argus. She accompanied us on the Vindicar for our liberation of Argus and vanquishing the Burning Legion. She is also the one that tried to assert her light dominion over Illidan's Stormrage, trying to fulfill this prophecy. Now, it's interesting, the Naaru with their prophecy, because prophecies are usually something associated directly with the light. You know, you have this destiny, this prophecy of the light, and I believe xe'ra even tells Illidan, the light will forge you a new destiny, and Illidan says, my destiny is my own, and shatters her with a beam of fel. And we've all seen this cutscene. We all thought it was fucking awesome, and many people were horrified to see xe'ra try to do this to Illidan. I think it's important to remember, just while we're on that note, this does not make xe'ra inherently evil. Xe'ra, being of light, believes, the way that I understand it anyway, that she has this prophecy that she needs to fulfill. This is her purpose. This is what she is here for, on a mission of desperation. A mission of desperation? What are you talking about? Well, if you think back, and it's actually been sprinkled in throughout the whole expansion, there was a quest line involving the Light's Heart, and the purification of Light's Heart, and the reconstruction of xe'ra, and all of this. But the very most interesting thing, two things, is one, Khadgar asserts that using the Tear of Elune is a means by which they can actually unlock Light's Heart. So in some manner, in some mechanism, they managed to use this Titan relic to basically fix the issue. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it kind of suggests that Elune perhaps crafted the Naaru. And this is really where I'm going to, is where the hell do the Naaru actually come from? It's a very interesting question. Except xe'ra tends to leave really big hints. In fact, xe'ra kind of tells you straight up where they came from. There is a vision during the quest lines in which xe'ra projects you to her astral presence in the cosmos, whatever this means.
Do not be alarmed, mortal. Your consciousness has been projected to my astral presence in the great dark beyond. I am xe'ra, one of the first Naaru to be forged here during the great ordering of the cosmos. You have come to the crucible of all creation in search of answers. Listen then, and find enlightenment. In a time now long past, a great battle was fought that would determine the fate of all worlds. It was in that final battle that the all-powerful Titan Pantheon fell to one of their own, Sargeras. After the fall, none were left to oppose the will of Sargeras. Unfettered, the Dark Titan and his burning legion would go on to annihilate countless worlds in their burning crusade. From the ashes of those ravaged worlds, survivors arose to stand against the demons. They became known as the Army of the Light. But now, the Golden Army teeters upon the precipice of oblivion as their campaign on Argus nears its terminus. Should they fall, the Legion will initiate a new burning crusade, and with it the cosmos will tremble. I am here now on a mission of desperation. I seek the child of light and shadow, the boy destined to end the age of demons. The one called Illidan Stormrage.
So this right there kind of asserts to us that also Illidan is the child of light and shadow. I don't think it's Eretor, considering Illyria wasn't dabbling in the void when Eretor was born, and Turalyon wasn't Lightforged when Eretor was born. Turalyon was messing with the light. Illyria had no involvement with the void yet at that point, and so while they are both now light and shadow, Eretor was not conceived during this. So I am not one of the individuals who believes that Eretor is a child of light and shadow. Let's get back to xe'ra. What xe'ra says here is very important because of what's behind her. Now, I'll show obviously some screenshots as you've already been looking at. The planet behind xe'ra is a planet made of fel. So this is very interesting because it suggests that she was forged here, the crucible, the furnace, if you will, of all of creation. Now, if you guys are into other mythos, in a lot of them, especially Greek, it is depicted that chaos was the first thing to exist, and fel is the magical manifestation of chaos, or at least the most common one. And xe'ra claims to have been forged. Now, that means that she was actually physically built by something. So, where exactly in the cosmos are we? Where the hell are we where we're looking at this fel planet? We don't know. We don't know if the planet in the background is an astral representation of Argus, if it's an astral representation of Azeroth. All we know is that it's fel. It's very chaotic. So this tells us a lot, and we can assert something very interesting from this. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here and remind you of how exactly Naaru turn into Void Naaru, and in cases such as Muru in the Sunwell back in TBC, actually end up turning into a void god. Xal'atath even suggests that all of the Naaru actually come from the void, and they are lost brethren that will inevitably return to the side of the void. But if Naaru are pure light, why are they inevitably gonna turn back into void? It makes me wonder if Naaru are actually designed as such. The thing about it is, the Naaru know that this fate will befall them. In fact, Velen, as I've spoken of before, reveals to Turalyon in the Macquarie questline that xe'ra was in fact hiding from him, that beings like the Naaru of pure holy light would actually descend into the madness of the void. We see this very evidently with Lura.
Being of the light, there is much xe'ra did not want you to know.
Velen actually says word for word, there is much that xe'ra did not want you to know. So xe'ra is well aware of this. But the thing is that what Titan, who messes with fel? Who's going to go and play around with fel? Because with the narrative that we've been given so far is that the Pantheon is against the fel. They're against the chaos. It's very corruptive, even though Arcane is just as, if not more corruptive. We can actually see people be healed from the issues caused by fel. The same can happen with Arcane, like the Nightborn and the Arkandor. The fruit will grant you back your sanity, and you will no longer be withered. But who messes with fel? Out of all the Titans? Sargeras, right? He's the one that messes with fel, and this is where I really tend to get stuck, is because if someone is literally out there forging Naaru, And Illidan's destiny was also forged alongside the Naaru, and it found its home in a vessel named Illidan Stormrage on Azeroth. Who's out there forging destinies? Who's doing that? Sounds like something that, like, the light would do, right? But there's this concept that the Naaru, if they're drained of power, if they die, you know, if mortals intervene too much, if they bring the entropy, they bring the chaos, the Naaru will in fact turn into a Void Naaru, and this is exactly what we see happen with Lura. Locust Walker even says, I've never seen a Naaru convert this fast without mortal influence, because Lura was locked up in the seat of the Triumvirate that whole time, so there wasn't mortals messing with her in there. She just naturally ended up descending into Void. It's very interesting. One other thing I want to mention is the Naaru that was accompanying, one of the Naaru rather, that was accompanying the Draenei on their escape to Draenor. I believe it was Kure. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, he actually, according to Chronicle, knows that because the power of him has been drained so much that he's going to descend into the void, and he actually convinces the Draenei to eject him from the ship, thus creating the Dark Star in the sky. Velen's dialogue in Draenor actually depicts that, of course, this is not a dark star at all, and Velen relates life to light. Remember, life is light, and light is life. This is a very interesting thing. I'm not sure if it's true, or if it's just something that Velen believes, because in-game characters could be wrong, but let's get back to this. Pyro, are you saying that Sargeras made the Naaru? Not necessarily, but considering that xe'ra showing us that it is a planet of Fel, perhaps he did. And the Naaru are constructs of his grandiose plan. Perhaps Velen was meant to escape, and Velen is actually still in on this. Or there's also the possibility that some other type of creature did create them. Khadgar could be right. Elune could have created the Naaru, but I just don't see much other evidence for that. You know, this interaction between the Tear of Elune and Light's Heart, sure, it was interesting, but did Khadgar just get lucky? Did Khadgar, by chance, through the power of the arcane and order via the Tear of Elune, have the ability, we found a way to use that to interact with Light's Heart in order to get what we wanted? Is that just blind luck? Is that the power of the arcane doing this? Hell, even what we see in the Netherlight Crucible, the priest class order hall, tends to kind of lean towards this idea that Naaru are beings of void that through the use of Netherlight, basically like Fel light, chaos light, are turned back into a regular Naaru. That's actually the whole premise of what the Netherlight Crucible was even used for. So is this basically where Naaru were first crafted? And did the Draenei do this? I don't know, man. It's really weird. It makes me wonder if there's any way that the Draenei could have crafted them, but I don't really think that makes sense. Like, that doesn't canonically line up that I can think of. In the 1000 Years of War audio drama that depicts the story of Illyria and Turalian Windrunner on Outland and on Draenor, after the Alliance expedition went in to fight back the Orcish horde, Locust Walker shows Illyria visions from the Void, and the Void seems to have visions of the light going around and purging worlds in holy fire.
Illyria began to see visions. Terrible, terrible visions. She saw the light moving through the cosmos like a ravenous predator. She saw it touch the minds of Azeroth's mortals, a touch that corrupted them forever. She saw generations live and die in invisible chains, bound to a force that granted them fleeting moments of peace in exchange for absolute obedience. She saw war. She saw the forces of the light striking back against the void. She saw darkened worlds burning in holy fire. She saw millions of creatures encased in luminous crystals the size of mountains, sustained by the light and unable to die. Warriors of the light were monsters, corrupting and consuming everything they touched. On and on and on it went.
And Locust Walker tells Illyria, these are lies, they're not true. Well, how does Locust Walker know that? He's just as one with the void as anyone else. Perhaps that allows him to know the truth. Perhaps that is not true. But if the void is in fact blinded by its own bias, just as the light is, then Locust Walker could be wrong. And those things that we have heard happening to the void, that Illyria was shown, might have actually happened. And Alex, from the Warcraft dev team, has an interview in which he very well illustrates this.
There is the void and there is the light. And it's also just something to understand in general is what is the void? Right? I feel like we try to give it, personify it with evil is its intent. The reality is it's way more gray than black and white. The evil, like you say, Locust Walker is the only one. It's not, right? Like, look, one day I hope to be able to go to the void, right? And I hope for us to see the horrors within that the light's causing. Right. Because that's where you get the perspective of things, right? Planets entombed in void here and tentacles rising and devouring entire planets that exist on this side of the void. Is there a counter to that where we go to the void and we see entire planets crystallized in the pink, yellow plating of the Naaru and the light? And how tyrannical is that to the inhabitants of those worlds?
And this is about the point where I came to the realization. Xe'ra is a very weird Naaru. Very weird. And the main reason for that is Xe'ra is the only Naaru in the history of the game that actually speaks to you with a voice. The only exception to this seems to be xe'ra, who is actually in the priest class order hall, and if you click on her enough, she does have little dialogue talking about, like, if you be careful, I can be sharp. Would you like to see the temple from, say, the outside? So she's pretty much the only other Naaru that I can think of that actually speaks. So, okay, so if you think back to Adal, any of the Naaru in Shattrath, even Muru, Lura, and the Seat of the Triumvirate, no Naaru ever actually speaks with a voice, except Xe'ra. And then I really started thinking about what Velen said. Light is life, and life is light. And that's when I started to really look at Xe'ra. I've always found, as I mentioned before, that the interaction between the Tear of Elune and Xe'ra was very weird. And then we go up and we find Eonar's refuge on Elunaria. And the door in Eonar's refuge has big light runes on it. And to be quite frank, they don't look that different from the ones on Xe'ra. This I thought was a little bit strange, but then I kind of started to listen to Xe'ra. And Xe'ra sounds quite a lot like Eonar. Now, I'm not saying that Xe'ra necessarily is Eonar, but what if Eonar could actually speak through Xe'ra? The reason that I say this is when you interact with Light's heart, you end up waking up in the Dalaran hospital unconscious several days later. Like, you were unconscious, then they wake you up. I have to wonder if you were dreaming. And the vision that you get from Xe'ra isn't actually real. If that's like astral projection, and you're actually speaking to Eonar, and it's like a masked version of Eonar, basically just pretending to be Xe'ra. If that makes sense? This would kind of line up with the whole Eonar being on the side of the Pantheon and wanting to ruin Sargeras' plans. If you look at Xe'ra, she even has the runes floating above her head, and there are in fact 5 of them, enough to spell out the word Eonar. It is also noteworthy that some of the runes, this might just be in my own head, but some of the runes kind of look like the letters E-O-N-A-R. Take a look, and it looks like they're scrambled. It doesn't look like they're in order, but if you were to take them and put them into order, I think it could be possible. One last thing is that Alex talked about the light going around and putting creatures of the void into these towering crystals, right? These they encased living creatures so that they were unable to die. And that's when I came to a horrifying realization, because I went back to that expansion which we should not name, to Auchindoun. It's the Draenei. The Draenei take the souls of their fallen and put them into crystals so that they never die, so that they can't be corrupted by the Legion, so that they can't be consumed by the void. They make it very evident in the dungeon that the crystals that you're going around and liberating from the Legion, they're full of souls, and when you look at them, you can see it. The Draenei, I think Kil'jaeden probably considers them to be traitors. He probably considers Velen to be a traitor, because Velen is not actually allowing the true death of his people. That he's not allowing them to pass on to darkness as they should, as things should. You know, there's a cycle. It's cyclical. The cyclical nature of the universe. This needs to happen. This also makes sense that the Draenei work so closely with the Naaru. So these ships, Oshugun, the Genadar, the Vindikar, I'm honestly a little bit concerned that the giant crystals on them are actually housing souls, and they're literally using them as power for the Naaru to fly and guide and navigate their ships. And I don't really know what to think of that, because that changes my entire perspective on the Draenei and everything that the Draenei have been doing. So, while that was completely appalling to me to see what they had been doing, Sargeras and the Legion was there to try to undo that, to let those souls pass on, to let them be free, realistically, because what the Void has seen and what the Void showed Illyria, I think it's true. I think the crystallization, all of that stuff I think is true. And it makes me wonder, did someone else build the Naaru and send them to the Draenei? Or did the Draenei build the Naaru themselves? I know I kind of mentioned it, kind of joking, but I'm really starting to wonder now if they literally took void creatures and built them into Draenei and sustained their light with the souls of the fallen. And that's why when Velen sacrifices himself and he said, you know, before he does that in alternate Draenor, he says, like I said, life is light and light is life. He literally is giving his life to give more light to the Naaru, to turn the Naaru back from void, pretty much the death cycle for a Naaru, back to light. That's horrifying. And that's what I wanted to add into this. So let me know what you guys think about that. While we believe that the Fel and the Void and the Old Gods are the corruptive forces in the universe, we have irrefutable proof that the arcane can be just as corruptive, so why not the light? Why not the light? Why can't the light be corruptive too? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's not about good and evil. It's about power. If you're a fan of the Star Wars universe, you're very familiar with this. I believe it's Palpatine who talks about unlimited power, you know, with his lightning fingers and everything, his force lightning. But anyway, I digress. Where do the Naaru truly come from? Do they come from Elune? Or perhaps the Naaru are an ordered, forceful version of a void Naaru, a void god, crammed into this crystalline structure in order to deceive you, in order to assert the dominance of the pantheon, this pure light throughout the cosmos. Because I'm not one to believe that Sargeras is pure light. I think he is chaotic light, holy fire, if you will. And I think the Pantheon are trying to create a universe of just arcane and pure light, but we have seen with the Naaru, pure light does not work, because pure light and pure void are one in the same. They are on two different sides of the same coin. They are of the same being, inexorably linked, yet entirely separate energies. The void is entropic, the light is radiant, right? The thing about it all is that light is really chaotic. It really is. And the problem that I foresee with what is actually going on with the Naaru is that as they descend into death and madness and entropy and chaos, as all things in the cosmos eventually and inevitably will, as much as the Titans try to prevent that, because of this, any creature that is purely born of light, I believe, will inevitably, unless provided more power, descend back into the void. All of the Naaru come from the void. I am sure of this. They're all originally from the void. And in a lot of other mythos, again, going back to external mythos, if you read into this specifically with Norse, everything comes from the void. Everything. It is the primal chaos, entropy incarnate of the universe that leads to the creation of all things. Whether that holds true in the WoW universe, we will have yet to find out. But I think we're all, not all, but I think some of us are already kind of leaning towards the void. I asked you this question. I will leave you with this. Given what I have showed you today, given these concepts that we've discussed, the potential that the light is actually a falsity, transcribed and ordered throughout the history of the cosmos by the Titans, potentially. If you had to choose between the light and the void, what would you pick? Would you side with entropy incarnate, madness as we have defined it, insanity, which would grant you immortality? Or would you be one to side with the light? Give your will to the light. Devote yourself and allow the light to flow through you. Would you listen to the words of Illidan? Your faith blinds you. That's all I got for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys don't know, I do have a Twitter, Twitch, and a Patreon page. I've been streaming a lot more on Twitch. I actually have a pretty regular schedule jotted down now, so you guys are more than welcome to come and check that out. I'm going to be probably streaming tomorrow on Sunday. I believe I'm doing that at 3 Pacific Standard Time, and I'd love if you guys would come and hang out. That's always a very fun time. We have a great time over there, and that's really awesome. So thank you guys so much for making that so special for me. A shout out to my patrons really quick. I certainly appreciate the support, you guys. The patron is just going up and up, and what do I say? You guys are really amazing. We have one of the best communities out there. I really believe that. So like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay awesome, and until next time, I will see you guys. I don't even know why I gave you the line anymore. You know what? I'll freaking see you later. Peace.